Hi guys, so in today's chapter we will be looking into Jainism and Buddhism. Okay, we are following R. Sharma, so it gives really in-depth details about these chapters. The numerous religious sect that arose in the middle Gangetic basin in the 6th century BC. Okay, we hear them as there are about 62 religious sects in this period. Many of these sects were based on regional customs and rituals practiced by different peoples living in northeast India. Okay, of these sects, Jainism and Buddhism were the most important ones. Okay, there were many other sects also, but Jainism and Buddhism emerged as the dominant ones. Okay, what were the causes of origin? This question can be asked. Okay, what are the causes of origin of these separate sect other than your Vedic literature uh, or your Hinduism? In post Vedic times, society was clearly divided into four varnas: Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Each varna was assigned well defined function. Although it was emphasized that varna was based on birth and the two higher varnas. The Indian society was at that time, in the later Vedic age, it was divided into four castes, mainly Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Okay, and this was given based on their birth. Okay, the family they are born into. If they are born into a Brahmana family, they are priest. They become priest. Okay, and also occupation was also assigned for them. Okay, the Brahmanas were given functions of priest, teachers. Okay, they demanded what? They demanded privileges, including those of receiving gift and exemptions from taxation and punishments. In post-Vedic texts, we have many instances of such privileges enjoyed by them. Okay, now what were the Kshatriyas? Kshatriyas ranked second in the Varna hierarchy. They fought and governed and lived on the taxes collected from peasants. Okay, the Vaishyas were engaged in agriculture, cattle rearing, and trade. They appeared as principal taxpayers. They were a majority community that paid taxes, and they were also traders. However, along with the two higher varnas, they were placed in the category of Dvija or the twice born. A Dvija was entitled to wearing sacred thread and studying Vedas, from which the Shudras were kept out. Shudras, they were the lowest caste. They meant for serving the three higher varnas. Along with women were barred from taking the Vedic studies. They appeared as domestic slaves. Women were also not allowed, and also Shudras were also not allowed. Okay, they were actually domestic slaves, agricultural slaves, craftsmen, and hired laborers in post-Vedic, later Vedic times. They were called why? They were called cruel, greedy, and thieving in habits. Maybe because their circumstances, like they were mistreated or ill-treated by the higher caste, such that they were forced to be greedy or do theft in order to survive. Okay, that may be the cause. And some of them were treated as untouchables. The higher the varna, the more privileged and purer a person was. The lower the varna of an offender, the more severe was the punishment prescribed for him. Naturally, varna divided society seems to have generated tensions. We have no means to find out the reactions of the Vaishyas and the Shudras. The Kshatriyas, who acted as rulers, however, reacted strongly. There were no reactions actually recorded from the Vaishya side or from the Shudra side. Okay, but the Kshatriyas, who acted as rulers, however, reacted strongly against ritualistic domination of the Brahmanas and seemed to have led a kind of protest movement against the importance attached to the birth of Varna system. The Kshatriya reaction against the domination of the priestly class called Brahmanas, who claimed to be various privileges, was one of the causes of the origin of new religions. These new religions, Jainism and Buddhism, they were founded by the people who belonged to the Kshatriya clan. Jainism by Mahavira, Vardhamana Mahavira, and Gautama Buddha. Gautama Buddha for Buddhism, they both belong to Kshatriya clan. Okay, and both disputed the authority of Brahmanas. Okay, but the real cause. Now we come to the real cause. This is we can say the social cause. Okay, this we can say as the next one that we are going to discuss is the economic cause. Okay, economic cause. But the real cause of the rise of these new religions lay in the introduction of new agricultural economy in the northeastern India. Okay, northeast India, including regions of eastern Uttar Pradesh and northern and southern Bihar, was about has about how much 100 centimeter of rainfall. Before those areas came to be colonized, that is, they began to be inhabited on a large scale. They were thickly forested. The thick jungles could not be cleared without the aid of iron axes. Although some people lived in this area from before 600 BC, they used implements of stone and copper, and they led a precarious life on river banks and confluences where land was opened to settlement through process of erosion and flooding in the middle Gangetic basin. Large scale habitations began from about 600 BC. Okay, why? When iron came to be used in this area. So the discovery of iron led to large scale habitations in the middle Gangetic basin. Okay. On account of the moist nature of the soil in this area, too many iron tools of the earliest times have not survived, but quite a few axes have been recovered from the layers belonging to the circa. Okay, that is from that 600 to 500 BC time we can find certain number of iron axes. The use of iron tools made possible clearance agriculture and large settlements. The agricultural economy based on the iron plowshare required the use of bullocks and could not flourish without animal husbandry. But the Vedic practice of killing cattle indiscriminately in the rise in agriculture led to what happened? Led to the use of bullocks, and this could not flourish without proper rearing or domestication of cattle. Okay, but Vedic practice had a negative effect. Okay, it encouraged killing of cattle indiscriminately in sacrifices. Okay, that stood in the way for the progress of new agriculture. The cattle were slowly decimated. So this continuous killing, what happened? The cattle number of cattle, they began to go down because of the cows and bullocks were killed in numerous Vedic sacrifices. The tribal people living in the southern and eastern fringes of Magadha also killed cattle for food. But if the new agrarian economy had to be stable, this killing had to be stopped. See, once the agriculture flourished, what happened? This also led to the development of trade. So naturally, Vaishyas were also affected. Okay, now what happened? This is the rise of economic cities or rise of kind of like development in that area. The period saw the rise of a large number of cities in the northeastern India. We may refer, for example, Kosumbi near Allahabad is there, Kushininagar, Vaishali, Banaras. Okay, all these cities came up. Besides, other cities had many artisans and traders who began to use coins for the first time. So these were actually somewhat developed cities with their own economy and coins and all. The earliest coins belong to the 5th century BC. They are called punch marked coin. Okay, they circulated for the first time in eastern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. So with the coins, what happened? The use of coins naturally facilitated trade and commerce, which added to the importance of Vaishyas. In the Brahmanical society, the Vaishyas ranked third, and first two being Brahmanas and Kshatriyas naturally looked for some religion which could improve their position. So what happened? The Vaishyas looked for another alternative than the Vedic system that could improve their position. Okay, Vaishyas extended generous support to both Mahavira and Gautama Buddha. Okay, now we will learn why also. What is the reason for this also? The merchants called the Setis made handsome who made handsome gift to Gautama Buddha and his disciples. There were several reasons for it. First, what is the first reason? Jainism and Buddhism in the initial stage did not attach any importance to the existing Varna system. There was no class divisions in Jainism and Buddhism in the initial stages. Secondly, they preached the gospel of non-violence, okay, which would put an end to wars between different kingdoms and constantly promote trade and commerce. Whenever there is peace in the country, trade and commerce will flourish. Okay. Third, Brahmanical law books called Dharma Sutras decried lending money. So, lending money was actually against the Brahmanical tradition. Okay. In the with interest. Okay. A person who lived on interest was condemned by them. Therefore, Vaishyas who lent money on account of growing trade and commerce were not held in esteem and were eager to improve their social status. So what happened? We can see that here Buddhism and Jainism accepting money lenders. On the other hand, we also notice a strong reaction against various forms of private property. Old-fashioned people did not like the use and accumulation of coins, made certainly of silver and copper and possibly of gold. They detested all new dwellings and dresses, new systems of, there is a generation gap we can say, okay, which amounted to luxury, and they hated war and violence. The new forms of property created social inequalities and caused misery and suffering to the masses of the people. So the common people yearned to return to primitive life. Whenever we discuss about politics or whenever we discuss about our future and all, we say in the older times it was much better. There were no violence. All the people lived peacefully. Okay, that kind of conceptual life is there. Okay, they wanted to get back to the aesthetic ideal which dispensed with the new forms of property and the new style of life. Both Jainism and Buddhism preferred simple Puritan aesthetic living. Buddhist and Jaina monks were asked to forego the good things of life. They were not allowed to touch gold and silver. They were to accept only as much from their patrons as was sufficient to keep body and soul together. They therefore rebelled against the material advantages stemming from new life in the Gangetic Basin. In other words, we find the same kind of reaction against the changes in material life in northeastern India in the 6th century BC. Okay, as we notice against the changes introduced by industrial revolution in modern times. Okay, just as the advent of industrial revolution made many people think of return to pre-machine age. So whenever we see we are in a world where we are addicted to a laptop, we are addicted to technology, we always wish that somewhere we go on a vacation, we stay at a place near the beach, enjoy the day. That kind of concept is there, such kind of dream is there in our life. So like that, those people in the Varna system also, they were also thinking that they should go back to a time when there was no inequality or there was peace in the community. Now we come to Vardhamana Mahavira and Jainism. Okay, Vardhamana Mahavira was born in 540 BC in the village near Vaishali, which is identical with Bazara in the district of Vaishali in North Bihar. His father was the head of famous Kshatriya clan and his mother was a Lashavi princess. Okay. It's actually Siddhartha and Trishala, I think. Okay. They were also connected with the royal family of Magadha. Okay. High connections made it easy for Mahavira to approach princes and nobles in the course of his mission. In the beginning of Mahavira led the life of a householder, but in the search of truth he abandoned the world at the age of 30 and became an ascetic, a monk, or we can say a person who is searching for enlightenment. He kept on wandering for 12 years from place to place. He would not stay for more than a day in a village and for more than 5 days in a town. During the course of his long journey, it is said he never changed his clothes for 12 years and abandoned them altogether when he attained a perfect knowledge of Kaivalya at the age of 42. Through Kaivalya, he conquered misery and happiness. Because of this conquest, he is known as Mahavira. So, whenever even I had this doubt, why is he called Mahavira? Okay, the reason is that through Kaivalya, through enlightenment, okay, or perfect knowledge, he conquered misery and happiness. So, because of that conquest, he is known as Mahavira or the great hero or Jaina, that is the conqueror, and his followers were known as Jainas. He propagated his religion for 30 years and his mission took him to Kosala, Magadha, Maithila, Chamba, etc. Okay, he passed away at the age of 72 in 468 BC at the place of Pavapuri. Okay, moreover, the questions are about Buddhism, about the life of Buddha's first sermon. All those questions have been asked, but just remember that in Jainism also there are places. Okay, in Jainism, Pavapuri is where Mahavira died. Okay, that is in modern Rajgir. Okay, question can be asked. So, doctrine of Jainism. Jainism taught five doctrines. First one is do not commit violence. Second one is do not speak a lie. Do not steal. Fourth is do not acquire property. And fifth one is observe brahmacharya or continence or chastity. Okay. He said that only the fifth doctrine was added by Mahavira and the other four being taken over by him from previous teachers. Although Parsva, the predecessor of Mahavira, had asked his followers to cover the upper and lower portions of their body, Mahavira asked them to discard clothes completely. This implies that Mahavira asked his followers to lead a more austere life. On account of this, in later times, Jainism was divided into two sects. Okay, first one is Svedambaras, or those who put on white dress, then Digambaras, that is, those who keep themselves naked. Okay, Jainism recognized the existence of the gods but placed them lower than Jaina. Jaina was the ultimate person for Jainism. Okay, it did not condemn the Varna system. Okay, Jainism did not condemn Varna system. That is a very important point. Very important point. Okay, in the MCQs, questions can be asked based on this. Okay, as Buddhism did. Buddhism condemned Varna system, but Jainism did not condemn Varna system. According to Mahavira, a person is born in a high or in a lower Varna in consequence to the sins and the virtues acquired by him in the previous birth. Mahavira looks for human values even in Chandela. Chandela is a lower caste person. Okay. In his opinion, through pure and meticulous life, members of the lower caste can attain liberation. Okay. Jainism mainly aims at the attainment of freedom from worldly bonds. It is not necessary to use any ritual for acquiring liberation. There is no ritualistic or sacrifices needed. Okay, it is based on mainly based on meticulous life, pure and meticulous life. Okay, it can be attained through full knowledge and action. Full knowledge, action, and liberation are considered to be the three gems or rathas of Jainism. What are the three rathas or gems of Jainism? Full knowledge, action, and liberation. Okay, that is, I can say it KFC. I call it KFC. That is K for knowledge, F is for faith, and C for conduct. Okay. Now, spread of Jainism. In order to spread the teachings of Jainism, Mahavira organized an order of his followers who admitted both men and women. It is said that the followers counted about 14,000, which was not a large number, since Jainism did not clearly mark itself out of Brahmanical religion. See, it did not condemn a Varna system. Okay, so it failed to attract the masses. Despite this, Jainism gradually spread into South and West India according to a late tradition. The spread of Jainism in Karnataka is attributed to Chandragupta Maurya. Okay, Chandragupta Maurya, the emperor, became a Jain, gave up his throne and spent the last days of his life in Karnataka as a Jaina ascetic. Okay, but this tradition is not corroborated by any other sources. The second cause of the spread of Jainism in South India is led to a great famine. Okay, now we come to the division. Okay, famine that took place in Magadha 200 years after the death of Mahavira. Okay, this is a story how Jainism was divided into Svedambaras and Digambaras. Okay, the famine lasted for 12 years, and so in order to protect themselves, many Jaina went to south under the leadership of Bhadrabahu, but the rest of them stayed back in Magadha. under the leadership of Thalabahu. The immigrant Jainas spread Jainism in South India. At the end of the famine, they came back to Magadha. Okay, they came back to Magadha where they developed differences with the local Jainas. Those who came back from the south claimed that even during the famine they strictly observed their religious rules. On the other hand, they alleged the Jaina ascetics living in Magadha had violated their rules and become lax. Okay, they have derailed from their path. Okay, that is what they claimed. In order to sort out these differences and compile the main teachings of Jainism, a council was convened in Patliputra, that is modern Patna. But what happened? Southern Jainas boycotted the council and refused to accept its decisions. From now onwards, Southerners came to be called Digambaras. Okay, Digambaras are basically the more orthodox Jainas, and the Magadhians, Svedambaras. However, epigraphic evidence of the spread of Jainism in Karnataka not earlier than the 3rd century AD. In subsequent centuries, especially from 6th century, numerous Jaina monastic establishments called Basadis sprang up in Karnataka and were granted lands by kings for their support. Jainism spread in Kalinga in Orissa in the 4th century BC and in the 1st century BC. It enjoyed patronage of the Kalinga king Kharavela, who had defeated the prince of Andhra and Magadha. In the 2nd and the 1st centuries BC, it also seems to have reached the southern district of Tamil Nadu. In later centuries, Jainism penetrated Malwa, Gujarat, and Rajasthan, and even now these areas have a good number of Jainas, mainly engaged in trade and commerce. Okay, although Jainism did not win as much state patronage as Buddhism did and did not spread very fast in early times, it still retains its hold in areas where it spread. On the other hand, Buddhism has practically disappeared from the Indian subcontinent. Okay, now we will look into the contribution of Jainism. Jainism made the first serious attempt to mitigate the evils of the Varna order and the ritualistic Vedic religion. The early Jainas discarded Sanskrit language, that is, early Jainas, and mainly patronized by Brahmanas. They adopted Prakrit language, that is, language of common people. Okay, to preach their doctrines, thus religious literature was written in Ardha Magadhi, and texts were finally compiled in the 6th century AD in Gujarat at a place called Vallabhi, a great center of education. So, Vallabhi, a great center of education. The adoption of Prakrit by the Jainas helped the growth of this language and its literature. Many regional languages developed out of Prakrit language, practically Swaraseni, out of which grew the Marathi language. Okay, the Jainas composed of the earliest important works of Abhabramsa and its first grammar. The Jaina literature contains epics, Puranas, novels, and drama. A large portion of Jaina writings is still in the form of manuscripts, which have not been published and are found in the Jaina shrines of Gujarat and Rajasthan. In the early medieval times, the Jainas also made good use of Sanskrit and wrote many texts in this language. Last, not the least, they contributed to the growth of Kannada. Okay, what happened? I will summarize it. They preached in Prakrit, the language of common people. Okay, they created an education center in Vallabhi. Okay, and they developed Marathi language. Okay, composed earliest important works in Abhabramsa and its first grammar. Okay, and it also finally contributed to the growth of Kannada. Okay, now Gautama Buddha and Buddhism. Gautama Buddha or Siddhartha was contemporary of Mahavira. He was born in 563 BC in a Sakya Kshatriya family in Kapilavastu. Okay, which is situated in the foothills of Nepal. Gautama's father seems to have been elected ruler of Kapilavastu and headed the republican clan of Sakyas. And his mother was a princess from Kosalan dynasty. Thus, like Mahavira, Gautama also belonged to a noble family born in a republic. He also inherited some republican sentiments. Okay. From his early childhood, Gautama showed a meditative bent of mind. He was married early, but marriage life was not did not interest him. Okay, he was what happened? He moved. He was moved by misery which people suffered in the world and looked for solution. At the age of 29, like Mahavira again, he left home. He kept on wandering for about 7 years and then attained knowledge at the age of 35 at Bodh Gaya under a peepal tree. From this time onwards, he began to be called Buddha or the Enlightened. Gautama Buddha delivered his first sermon at Sarnath in Benares. He undertook long journeys and took his message far and wide. He had a very strong physique which enabled him to walk 20 to 30 km a day. He kept on wandering, preaching and meditating continuously for 40 years, resting only in the rainy season every year. During his long period, he encountered very staunch supporters of rival sect, including the Brahmanas, but defeated them in debates. Actually, he engaged in debates with other members of the sect, a different sect. His missionary activities did not discriminate between rich and poor. Okay, the high and the low, the woman and man. Okay, Gautama Buddha passed away at the age of 80 in 483 BC at a place called Kushanagar. Okay, identical with the village of Kasai in the district of Dairoria in the eastern Uttar Pradesh. Now, what were the doctrines of Buddhism? Buddha proved to be a practical reformer who took note the realities of the day. Okay, he did not involve himself in fruitless controversies regarding soul. Okay, he did not discuss the matters about soul and the Brahma, about the God also. Okay, which reigned strongly in his time. He addressed himself in the worldly problems. He looked for logical reasons. Okay, he said that the world is full of sorrows and the people suffer on account of desires. Actually, he says that desires are the root cause of all the problems in your life. If desire is conquered, nirvana will be attained, and that is, man will be free from the cycle of birth and death. Now, Gautama Buddha recommended an eightfold path, Astangika Marga, for the elimination of human misery. This path is attributed to him in a text for about 3rd century BC. It comprised 8 observation, 8 determination, it comprised right observation. Okay, right determination, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right exercise, right memory, and right meditation. Okay, if a person followed this eightfold path, he would not depend on the machinization of priest, and yet he will be able to reach his destination. Gautama taught that a person should avoid excess of both luxury and austerity. He prescribed the middle path. Okay, Gautama Buddha also laid down a code of conduct for his followers on the same lines as was done by Jaina teachers. The main items of this conduct were: do not covet the property of others, do not commit violence, do not use intoxicants, do not speak a lie, do not indulge in corrupt practices. These teachings are common in social conduct ordained by almost all the religions. Okay, now what was the special features of Buddhism and the causes of its spread? Buddhism did not recognize the existence of God and soul. Okay, another important MCQ point of view question. Okay, they were against Varna system, and they also does not recognize the existence of God and soul. Okay, this can be taken as a kind of revolution in the history of Indian religion, similar since early Buddhism was not immersed in the claptrap of psychological philosophical discussions. It appealed to the common people. It practically won the support of lower orders as it attacked the Varna system. People were taken into the Buddhist order without any consideration of caste. Women were also admitted to the Sangha and thus brought on a par with men. Okay, actually, this point, women were admitted. It is said that the admission of women is also considered as one of the causes for the decline of Buddhism. Okay, in comparison, with Brahmanism, Buddhism was liberal and democratic. Buddhism made a special appeal to the people of the non Vedic areas where it found a virgin soil for conversion. The people of Magadha responded readily to Buddhism because they were looked down upon by the orthodox Brahmanas. Magadha was placed outside the pale of holy Aryavarta, the land of the Aryas covering modern Uttar Pradesh. The old tradition persists. The people of North Bihar would not like to be cremated south of the Ganga in Magadha. The personality of Buddha and the method adopted by him to preach his religion helped the spread of Buddhism. He tried to fight evil by goodness and hatred by love. He refused to be provoked by slander and abuse. He maintained poise and calm under difficult conditions and tackled his opponents with wit and presence of mind. It is said that on one occasion, an ignorant person abused him. Buddha listened on silently, and when person was stopped abusing, Buddha asked, "My son, if a person does not accept a present, what will happen to it?" His adversary replied, "It remains with the person who has offered it." Buddha then said, "My son, I did not accept your abuse." Okay. The use of Pali, the language of the people, also contributed to the spread of Buddhism. He facilitated the spread of Buddhist doctrines among the common people. Gautama Buddha also organized a Sangha or the religious order whose doors were kept open to everybody, irrespective of caste and sects. The only condition required for the monks was that they would faithfully observe the rules and regulations of the Sangha once they were enrolled as members of the Buddhist church. They had to take the vow of chastity, poverty, and faith. On this, so there were three main elements of Buddhism: Buddha, Sangha, Dhamma. As a result of organized prescribing under the auspices of Sangha Buddhism, what happened? Made rapid strides even in the lifetime of Buddha. The monarchies of Magadha, Kosala, Kosumbi, and several republican states and their people adopted this religion. 200 years after the death of Buddha, the famous Mauryan king Ashoka embraced Buddhism. This was an epoch making event. Through his agents, Ashoka spread Buddhism into Central Asia, West Asia, and Sri Lanka, and thus transformed it into a world religion. Even today, Sri Lanka, Burma, Tibet, and parts of China, Japan profess Buddhism. Although Buddhism disappeared from the land of its birth, it continues to hold ground in the countries so South Asia, Southeast Asia, and East Asia. Now we look into the causes of the decline of Buddhism. In the 12th century AD, Buddhism became practically extinct in India. It continued to exist in a changed form in Bengal and Bihar till the 12th century, but after this religion almost completely vanished from the country. So, what were the causes? We find that in the beginning, every religion is inspired by the spirit of reform, but eventually it succumbs. It becomes part, or it becomes dominated by rituals and ceremonies it originally denounced. Buddhism underwent a similar metamorphosis. Buddhism was also affected by all this aspect. It became a victim of the evils of Brahmanism against which it had fought in the beginning. To meet the Buddhist challenge, the Brahmanas reformed their religion. There was a rise in Brahmanism. Okay, they stressed the need for the preserving of cattle wealth and assured women and Shudras of admission to heaven. Buddhism, on the other hand, changed for the worse. What happened to Buddhism? Gradually, the Buddhist monks were cut off from the mainstream of the people's life. They gave up Pali, the language of the people, and took Sanskrit, the language of the intellectuals. From the 1st century AD, they practiced idol worship on a large scale and received numerous offerings from devotees. The rich offerings, supplemented by generous royal grants to the Buddhist monasteries, made the life of monks easy. Some of the monasteries, such as Nalanda, collected revenue from as many as 200 villages. By the 7th century AD, Buddhist monasteries had come to be dominated by ease loving people and became centers of corrupt practices which Gautama Buddha had strictly prohibited. The new form of Buddhism is known as Vajrayana. The numerous wealth of the monasteries with women living in them led to further degeneration, as I told you earlier. Buddhists came to look upon women as objects of lust. The Buddha is reported to have said that into his favorite disciple. Who was the favorite disciple? Ananda. If women were not admitted into monasteries, Buddhism would have continued for thousands of years. But because this admission has been granted, it may last only 500 years. For their riches, the monasteries came to be coveted by the Turkish invaders. They became special targets of the invaders' greed. The Turks killed a large number of Buddhist monks in Nalanda, although some of the monks managed to escape to Tibet and Nepal. In many cases, by the 12th century AD, Buddhism had practically disappeared from the land of its birth. Now, importance and influence of Buddhism. Actually, Buddhism is a very important topic in the current scenario with our Act East Asia policy, all these policies with China intrusion. So, we are looking into other Southeast nations. So, Buddhism is a very diplomatic solution for our country. Despite its ultimate disappearance as an organized religion, Buddhism left its abiding mark on the history of India. The Buddhists showed a keen awareness of the problems that faced the people of northeast India in the 6th century BC. The new iron plowshare, agriculture, trade, and the use of coins enabled the traders and nobles to accumulate wealth. And we hear of the people possessing 80 kotis of wealth. All this naturally created sharp social economic inequalities. So, Buddhism asked people not to accumulate wealth. Okay, according to it, poverty breeds hatred, cruelty, and violence. To eradicate these evils, the Buddha advised that farmers should be provided with with grain and other facilities, the traders with wealth, and the laborers with wages. Okay, these measures were recommended to remove poverty in this world. Buddhism further taught that if poor gave alms, to the donations to the monks, they would be born wealthy in the next world. The code of conduct prescribed by the monks represents a reaction against the material conditions of the northeast India in the 6th and the 5th century BC. It imposes restrictions on food, dress, and sexual behavior of the monks. They cannot accept gold and silver, they cannot take a say or purchase. These rules were relaxed after the death of Buddha, but the early rules suggest a return to a kind of primitive communism, a characteristic of tribal society in which people did not practice trade and plow agriculture. The code of conduct prescribed for monks practically reflects a revolt against use of money, private property, and luxurious living. Which appeared in the 6th century BC. In the northeast India, in those times, property and money was regarded as luxuries. Although Buddhism tried to mitigate the evils resulting from new material life in the 6th century BC, it also tried to consolidate the changes of the social and economic life of people. The rule that debtors were not permitted to be members of the Sangha naturally helped the moneylenders and richer sections of the society from whose clutches the debtors could not be saved. Similarly, the rule that slaves could not join the Sangha helped the slave owners. Thus, rules and teachings of Gautama Buddha took full account of the new changes of the material life and strengthened them ideologically. So, these all the aspects that it did not allow slaves to be part of the Sangha, and that it did not allow those who took loan or who were indebted, who were trapped in debt traps. The Buddhism gave what a kind of like a statutory backing, we can say. Like kind of backing. Like normalizing slave people not to be allowed to Sangha. Whenever a question is asked why you are not allowed in Sangha, the monks can say that it is said by Buddha, or it is in Buddhism, that kind of written format was given, or written or permission, although the Buddhist monks had renounced the world and repeatedly practiced the greedy Brahmanas, criticized the greedy Brahmanas. In several ways they resembled the Brahmanas. Most of them did not participate directly in production and lived in the donations or gift given by the society. Most of them emphasized the virtues of carrying out family obligations, protecting private property, and respecting political authority. Both of them supported what? Supported social order based on classes. For the monks, however, the Varna was based on action and attributes, but for Brahmanas, it was based on births. Undoubtedly, the objective of the Buddhist teaching was to secure the salvation of the individual or nirvana. Those who found it difficult to adjust themselves to the breakup of the old tribal society and the rise of gross social inequalities on account of private property were provided with some way of escape. But it was confined to the monks. No escape was provided for the lay followers who were taught to come to terms with the existing situation. Buddhism made an important impact on the society by keeping its doors open to women and Shudras. Since both women and Shudras were placed in the same category by Brahmanism, they were neither given secret thread or nor allowed to read the Vedas. Their conversion to Buddhism freed them from such mark of inferiority. Okay, with its emphasis on non-violence and the sanctity of animal life, Buddhism boosted the commonwealth of the country. The earliest Buddhist text, Suttanipatta, declares the cattle to be givers of food, beauty, and happiness, and thus pleads for their protection. This teaching came significantly at a time when the non Aryans slaughtered animals for food and the Aryans in the name of religion. The Brahmanical instance on the sacredness of the cow and non violence was apparently derived from Buddhist teachings. Buddhism created and developed a new awareness in the field of intellect and culture. It taught the people not to take things for granted but to argue and judge them on merits. Like you should have a logical reason for all these things. Okay. To a certain extent, the place of superstition was taken by logic. Okay. This promoted rationalism among people. In order to preach the doctrines of the new religion, Buddhists compiled a new type of literature. They enormously enriched Pali by their writings. The early Pali literature was divided into three categories. The first contains the sayings and teachings of Buddha. The second deals with the rules to be observed by the members of the Sangha. And the third presents a philosophical exposition of the Dhamma. Okay, literary activities of Buddhist monks continued even in the Middle Ages, and some famous Abhabramsa writings in the East India were composed by them. The Buddhist monasteries developed as great centers of learning and can be called residential universities. Mention may be made of Nalanda and Vikramashila in Bihar and Vallabhi in Gujarat. Buddhism left its mark on the art of ancient India. The first human statues worshipped in India were probably those of Buddha. The faithful devotees portrayed the various events in the life of Buddha in stone. The panels found at Gaya in Bihar and Sanchi in Brahut at Madhya Pradesh are illuminating the examples of artistic activity. From the 1st century AD, the panel images of Gautama Buddha began to be made. The Greek and the Indian sculptors worked together to create a new kind of art in the northwestern frontier. That is Gandhara art. We will come to it in the art and culture lecture about different art schools. Okay, which was known as Gandhara art. Okay, the images made by this region betray Indian as well as foreign influence. It's a mix of Indian and foreign influence. For the residents of the monks, rooms were hewed out of the rocks and thus began the cave architecture in the Barabar hills in Gaya and in western India around Nasik. Under the impetus of Roman trade, Buddhist art flourished in the Krishna Delta, and under that of Central Asian contacts, it thrived in Mathura and Gandhara. So, that is it for Buddhism and Jainism. I hope the chapter was clear for you guys. Until next time we meet again, God bless you all. Jai Hind.